here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. I paused for a second there, Shedheads, because I was going to talk about the illustrious, the lavish living conditions that I have in my home city, state, wherever you're at. But I guess when you're north of hell by about, 2 miles, when it's 100 degrees plus, again, for the 6th, 7th, 8th, 28th, 30th, I don't know how many days in a row it's been. But is it really lavish? I don't think so. And so here we are. As I sit in the bunker to record this incredible podcast for you, I just wanted to know the elements that your Shedadamus is sitting in. But we won't diverge into me. We're not going to go any deeper into myself and what I'm experiencing. Let's get into a breakdown of round 24. A round that we were so excited about. The round that was going to kick off 1 versus 2, the showdown, blah, 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 blah. But a match that ended up being decided by a whistle. 24-22. We're going to go into this on a deep dive here in a matter of moments. But very, I can't stress anymore how disappointing that match ended and what we got to experience because of the whistle. But it was also overshadowed by the fact that Nathan Cleary goes down again with a shoulder separation, and I'm also going to go into a deep dive about that when we give you a breakdown of the round. But a really good match, a match that I very much enjoyed, but the problem the NRL is having, and I'm not going to go into it right now, is that I think all of us fans are sitting here waiting for that whistle to blow. And for all the hard work that these players are doing on the field to all of a sudden get flushed down the toilet because of a call from just one person on the field. Or the bunker chimes down 20 minutes later. Also the same game right now where a guy can stay on the field for 5 or 10 minutes after being knocked out almost in an HIA, and then finally the doctor calls down and says remove him from the field. I don't understand that. But big victory by the Storm. No more negativity right now because we'll get into that sooner than later. Big victory by the Storm. And somehow Bellyache's boys always find a way just to come to the top, find a way to somehow manipulate that victory, and they get it done again. And pretty much, I would say, shore up that minor premiership. It would have been a great race if somehow Penrith would have got the victory and we would have, really followed up these last 3 rounds just in anticipation. But I don't think that Penrith can pull back even with them after that head-to-head victory by the Storm. Sea Eagles 24, Warriors 10 in a monsoon. I don't think a poncho, umbrella, or a boat could have saved you in that match. We would have found out later, though, as we watched that match, there was lightning to the east. And I don't know if any of you have been to Manly. If you have, you know what I'm talking about right now. But that lightning was taking place in the city, and we ended up finding out, an hour and a half later, what that lightning was doing, because it was drowning the stadium that the Chooks and the Eels were getting ready to play on, because they were in a straight-up monsoon too. And ask Dylan Brown about his slip-and-slide ride during that match. But anyway, the Sea Eagles take care of business. And for some of us who like the Waz, it pretty much put the final nail in the coffin for that 2024 season for the Waz. Very, very disappointing. I think they had a few opportunities to make this season totally different. I do think that comes down to some coaching decisions. One, I've told you before on this podcast, I think RTS, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, should have been in the fullback position from day one. I think he just provided a lot more strike out of the back for the Waz. And nothing against Chance-Nickel Klokstad, but I think he would have been great in the position that Roger was in. Maybe center, maybe wings. But he just isn't that explosive player that RTS is. Now, I could go on forever about that, but the Sea Eagles continue to march on. I think a lot of people that know the game are very, very high on Manly. And I think a lot of people who just kind of watch the game a little bit for what it is occasionally have not really been putting the full bullseye on these guys' chest. But Manly's playing some really, really good football right now, and I really think that they could do some damage. I think for all the time that I've watched the game, this Manly side and this Canterbury Bulldogs side in 5 and 6 right now in those positions might be the two most dangerous 5s and 6s that I've seen for a very, very long time, and I think they could do some damage. I don't know if Canterbury will have the strike to get into the top 4 because Cronulla's playing some good ball as well. But 5 and 6, those two positions could be dangerous, and they could do some damage. The problem is they're not going to leave any type of wiggle room for error because it's going to be one and done for them. But I will say this right now, Manly's playing some good footy. It's going to be a test against the Tigers coming up in Leichhardt, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the 40-20. Roosters 38, Eels 14. I told you just a second ago, played in a slip and slide, but the Roosters continue their dominance all over the bottom 9 clubs. It's something that has been talked about time and time again, but what we need to see from the Roosters, the Chookies, is for them to start playing that same type of dominating footy against the big-time clubs, the top 4 sides. And right now, the hoodoo that Penrith has over them, they've been having trouble recently playing against the Storm. Those are the teams they're going to have to get through to get to the finals and to actually lift the trophy. So they still have something to show if they're going to actually pull that off. But a good victory. You look at those boys on Parramatta, and they're so ready for this season to be over with. So much has happened, losing their coach, losing Mitch. So big victory for the Roosters. And again, just 3 more weeks, Dom. 3 more weeks. Bulldogs 30, Dolphins 10. Jacob Carraz leaves his lunch on the Bundaberg asphalt. And if you watch the match, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Would anybody think that it would be smart to dive on that track that they were playing on? That ground looks so hard. And I've been to Bundaberg. So when Mrs. Shedadamus and I went there to go get some of the greatest rum that I've ever tasted in my entire life. So we went to the distillery, right? And I was driving through this town, and I was like, wow, it's like driving in Texas. It's like not a lot of stuff is alive up here. It looked very hard, very dry. And I think we got to experience that as Jacob Carraz bounced off the floor and then left his contents in the end zone. But the funniest part of that moment is watching the trainer standing over him and then start kicking away his puddle, it was more of a mound. It was not a puddle. A mound of debris that he left in the end line there. The trials and tribulations of a rugby league trainer were put on full display there. But the Dogs take care of business. Hammer chasing down the Fox. I think that right there was the moment of the round that everyone was talking about. You know, we've been talking for a few years now about having the fastest man competition on grand final day, maybe the players that aren't in the grand final having a 100-meter race or whatever. But we kind of got to see that in full display. And the Cheetah, the Hammer, whatever you want to call him, fins up, ran down the Fox. Now, I don't know if he runs down the Fox of a couple of years ago who hasn't had the hamstring problems and some of the lower body injuries, but he sure ran him down in that match, and that was really, really fun to see. Sorry to Tommy Dearden that now he's been passed on the rundown of a player down the sideline. But the Bulldogs continue to march, and I know a lot of Dog supporters are so excited right now about the results they're getting. And they should be, because they've not had a lot to cheer about probably since 14, 15-ish. So it's been a long time coming. But Dogs fans, celebrate. You're playing great footy. Going to be tough this week, though. Going to be tough. Cowboys 42, Raiders 4. In a move that I was really, really skeptical about, Jake Clifford shut up the Shedadamus. Because with Chatty out of the game, Jake Clifford, who I've always been a fan of, I really thought Jake Clifford kind of got the raw end of the deal when he was at Newcastle. But, you know, the pass is the pass. He went over, played some good ball over in the Super League. But he's got his chance again, and I don't know if he's going to give it up. Because if you think about it, if Chad's not coming back next year because he's going to the Roosters, and now that Jake Clifford just signed a 1-year extension on his new contract with the Cowboys, you kind of almost for a second start thinking that maybe we've seen Chad Townsend on the field for the last time for the North Queensland Cowboys. Because if Jake Clifford can play that footy the way that he played this last week and play up to expectations that a lot of people have had for Jake Clifford for so long, it's hard to see him lose that position again because he is the future going forward. It's going to be Clifford and Tommy Dearden in the halves. And if he plays that way, attacking the line the way that he did, all of that, why would you take the job away from him? So it's sad because I'm a big fan of Chad. I like a lot of the stuff he does, his podcast. I think he has always played above his weight. I think he's a smart footy player. But we might not see him again on the field for North Queensland again. Dragons 32, Titans 16. A match that I thought, being Kieran Foran's 300th game, I thought the Titans were going to come out, really show their strike. To me, it's always which St. George squad is going to show up. And it was really kind of up in the air because they played really, really well in the first half. And then they just totally fell away in the second half. And thank gosh they got the lead they did because the Titans played almost a perfect second half, but just couldn't fully get back into the match because the lead St. George's put up. But it was good to see Jack Bird back on the field for St. George. I don't know where he's going to play next season. I think that they're pretty short up. I don't by any means see Little Flano going anywhere, and Ben Hunt's not going anywhere yet. So I don't know if you put Birdie back in the centers or if he's even going to be at St. George next year. But I've always been a big fan of Bird, and it was good to see him play a good brand of footy this game. But a big match coming up with their big rivals in Cronulla this week. So it's going to say a lot about this coming up match. Tigers 18, Rabbitohs 16. That's right. I paused right there for effect because when the West Tigers get a victory right now, we need to shine the spotlight hard because we don't get that often. It's like a perfect bank heist. You just don't know if we're going to get away, but they get away, they get the victory, and it almost felt like it at the end, right? Because, the coaching box, the coaching staff and the box are going crazy for the Rabbitohs, thinking they've won it. No, forward pass. But that's the Tiger season, right? No matter how good footy they play, it comes down to the end. I think everybody who was wearing a Tigers jersey was just holding their breath, thinking and visualizing how somehow they were going to lose that match, how South Sydney was going to come back over the top of them, and it wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. The Tigers get the victory, and now the battle for the wooden spoon is on. It is on. Dom, it is on. So we'll have to see. I think this match coming up against Manly is going to be huge for the Tigers, and a huge, huge loss for the game for the Rabbitohs, that Cody Walker is out this coming week, too, because of HIA for head contact for concussion. So that's a big loss for South Sydney going forward. But Tigers, big victory. Tiger gonna Tiger. But then we also hear one last side note about this, that the Tigers are shutting down Adam Dewey because the swelling on that knee that he just had surgically repaired last season has come back. He's not going to play the rest of the season. Benji states that he's got to keep Adam Dewey out of his own way because he'd play through anything if he could. So they're going to try to get him ready for the 2025 season. I think that's a huge loss for the Tigers if they don't want to win another wooden spoon, because I think Adam Dewey, since he's come back, has been one of the best players besides Appy. So huge loss for the Tigers for that battle to not win the wooden spoon. And finally, Sharks 19, Knights 18. Dan Atkinson, a guy I've talked about because, your Shedadamus is going to shed light again on players who deserve it. Daniel Atkinson's had an incredible season. I think he's played 14 games for the Sharkies this year, and no one going into this season thought we were going to see Dan Atkinson for 14, 15, 16, 17 games, which he'll probably finish out. Because I don't see, even with Braden Trindle coming back this coming week, I don't see Atkinson not being in the side. He's been one of the best players for Cronulla this year. And he just shows up time and time again. But he's lost the golden point kick to win it for the Sharks. But this match is going to be remembered again for more trouble that the NRL has brought on itself. Another referee decision about blocking. We're going to go into this with this deep dive we're about ready to do. But I want to really give my respect to the Cronulla Sharks because they continue to lose players. They never have their starting. Nico hasn't played for weeks now, but they still continue to find a way to win and stay in the top four. They very easily could have put their heads down and said, it's just not our week because the Knights were playing that well, right? But they didn't. They just kept fighting. They just kept fighting and staying in the match and kept fighting. And in the end, it just parlayed and came out that they somehow pulled that off. And I don't almost know how they did it. But the Sharks, that's their brand of footy. They kind of almost, they should maybe be called the Cronulla Crocodiles because they slowly just keep pulling you into the deep end until finally they get you right where they want you, the right amount of water, and then you're in trouble. So Cronulla, hats off to you guys. You've played some incredible footy. You've had some bad moments this year, but in the end, you're still in the top four. And I think that they have enough strike to stay in the top four for the rest of the season. Now, Shedheads, old Papa Shedadamus doesn't get angry often on this show. I don't really show a lot of venom. I'm opinionated. That's why we listen. You know that I have teams that I somewhat support. I'm never going to really fully let you guys know that. Some of you know who listen to this show, but that's something different. But I don't get angry. But Shedheads, I am angry right now. I'm really angry because you heard me last week pumping up this battle for 1 and 2 that we had coming up. We had the Storm, we had the Panthers, we had everything on the line. The minor premiership was on the line. You had incredible players, Cleary, Pappenhausen, Hughes, Luai, Fisher Harris, the list goes on and on. Munster. I can just keep going. All-stars, rock stars of the game. And that is who you want to see win the game. You want to see those players be the reason that one team wins, one team loses, right? Because you knew that Ivan and Bellyache were going to have those teams ready, right? That is what we live to watch sports for when you get a match like that. I don't care how bad those two teams are playing that time. You get a Yankees-Red Sox matchup. For some reason, it's prime time on ESPN over here in the States, right? And you're like, the Red Sox are 6.5 games out. Well, yeah, but they're still on prime time to play the Yankees, right? That is a premier matchup, and we had it. We had prime time. Okay, not prime time. It was 5 a.m. in the morning. All right, let's be honest. But we had prime time in Australia of these two teams. We've been waiting for it, right? But we don't get it. And that is what makes me mad right now with the game. We don't get it because the match instead was decided by Ashley Klein's whistle. And I was angry because what we got was Jerome Hughes going in, attacking the line, and holding it to the last second to start playing the play out of the back. Gets a pass off, and James Fisher-Harris hits him, right? He hits him. Not late, not over the top. He didn't try to put him out for the remainder of the season, but he did make contact with him to let him know you attack the line. This is what the game used to be. This is what the game should be. Because if you attack the line as a halfback, you have to understand your job is to draw players to you to open up your wings, right? So it's almost like I'm holding, draw you in, kick the pass out, right? But guess what? If you hold the ball long enough and they can catch you, the rabbit gets caught, right? It's like hunting. The rabbit gets caught. And you're going to take a knock. And that's what happened to Jerome Hughes. He got a little bit of a hit. But it wasn't even a penalty, let alone a sin bin, let alone any of that garbage that we're talking about. But that's how this match is decided. By an Ashley Klein call of a late hit. And it was not a late hit. right now we're all celebrating the Hall of Fame. We're celebrating the 14th Immortal, which we're going to talk about in the 40-20. We're celebrating all these players, right? Your Cooper Cronks, your Jonathan Thurstons. These two players, just off the top of our head, what made their Hall of Fame careers were their toughness. I can't tell you the amount of times that I watched Jonathan Thurston, one of the smaller halfbacks at that time, attack the line, hold it, and just get obliterated. But give his body up for his team. That's what makes rugby league beautiful. Is that sometimes you have to take that physical sacrifice to put your team in the right position. That's what makes it what it is, right? I played the position of quarterback, right? And I watched the NFL today, and I could barely watch it because it's almost like the quarterback is treated not like he's even a football player. If I wanted to be treated that way, I'd be a field goal kicker or a punter, right? I'm a quarterback. I have to hold the ball sometimes to the last moment to get the perfect pass away, and I'm going to get crunched. And I know it. That's why God invented mouthpieces. I know I'm going to get hit, right? But some of the coolness is pulling myself up off the field after I know I just took a hit. First off, to show the other team I'm not going anywhere. And secondly, to look at the pass that I just made that I know a lot of people would not be able to stand there to take that type of punishment or look right down the barrel of the gun. It's just what comes with the position, what comes with the game. If we want the game to get away from this, maybe we should just put flags on them. We almost have flags on the players in the NFL now. But you cannot let a game that has been defined by toughness, that's defined by strength, because if that's the case, NRL, put these guys in pads, put them in helmets, and put them out there if you're so concerned. But you can't have it both ways. If they're going to stay rugby league players, you have to understand they're going to have to take knocks. And I'm so tired of watching high contact and hearing the official apologize that he's having to blow the whistle when the player falls into a guy's arm and he said, "Oh, high contact." Well, the player just fell. My strike point was at a different position and he fell. And so guess where my strike point is? It's not the same place, but I'm getting penalized because this guy's footing or because this guy slipped. We've missed the point. I'm going to tell you right now, I want player safety, right? I want player safety. And what I don't want is to see players like when I first started watching the game that would come in there, it would almost be like WrestleMania with guys sometimes with the swinging arms, right? That's not needed. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a guy come in there and try to take out and attack the head of another player. I don't want to see that. But when you start making these calls and there's nothing happening to these guys, because if we took a player off the field every time that you blew the whistle for high contact, there'd be nobody on the field. But you can't have it both ways. So if you're protecting the head, you got to take them off the field. But we sometimes see that's not the case. Like I just said when I did the breakdown, a guy will stay out there 10 minutes before the doctor gets the buzz down on the field. The independent doctor buzzed down the flare saying, "Oh, you might want to remove him because he got hit in the head and he's groggy and we had to help him back up." But it took you 10 minutes to figure that out? I don't get it. And that's the problem that you get when you start over officiating and continue to make rule after rule after rule after rule. Let's go even farther. We were just talking about halfbacks right there, right? But what about the Kafusi hit on Josh Curran? Two front rowers. Josh Curran goes right down the middle, right into the freaking eye of the hurricane. And Felice Kafusi, the hardest hitting guy that I've probably seen for a very, very long time. And just think of the danger with that haircut Kafusi's got. He puts his shoulder in his ribs and says, "Welcome to the party, Josh Curran." That is a hit that was applauded for almost the entire time I've watched the game. Until this new brand of footy that's come out there, which is to me horrendous. I love this game. But this game is going to start losing people. And let alone you want to bring this game to America. You know what Americans aren't going to accept? Not understanding how that's a penalty in one game and not a penalty in another game. Or why this guy gets right back up, but you just called a penalty. Or why you called a penalty for a guy that didn't try to even do any type of malicious contact, but you're calling him and penalizing his team. And we're worried right now so much that one of these horrendous calls could cost a team a game in the finals, a season. We just watched the season. Now let's go on to the other thing, because I could roll all day with this. Let's go on to the other thing, this blocking situation that's going on that we experienced in the Knights and Sharks match, right? First off, a blocker has to actually make an attempt to block, right? And so they call the first one Kalen Ponga on the Knights, because Will Kennedy is allegedly blocked. Will Kennedy wasn't blocked whatsoever. Not whatsoever. And you tell me where those two players that were allegedly quote-unquote blockers were supposed to go. There was no place for them to go. They did exactly what they should have. They stood right there, right? And so Bubba, not hindered from this whatsoever, charges around him. But the moment that whistle's blown, things now have all changed. Things have all changed. And I'm not going to, I already threw Ashley Klein under the bus. We're not going to just start dropping names of officials, no matter how much I want to, because there are a couple of these guys that I always see that they want to almost be a part of the game more than let the players be a part of the game. All right? Anyway, but the next time down, you've got to call it, because Kalen Ponga watched it, and what does he do? He comes back out on Atkinson, and instead of really trying to make a play for the ball, he runs into a guy and then throws his arms up. Well, guess what you have to do then? You have to blow the whistle again. And now what you've done is you've put in all players and coaches' minds that whenever we now have a situation on a golden point or a field goal try like that, run into somebody. Run into somebody. But you make that call in that game, but then you don't make a call when Nathan Cleary's taken out in the Panther Storm match, which everybody knows that was a blocking. It prevented him from making a move to the try line to make the tackle. That is called obstruction. That's what that is. But they don't make the call there. This type of up in the air, I don't know if they're going to make the call, not make the call, is putting a black eye on the game. And right now, this game is shooting straight up. I don't even want to tell you the amount of money that Mrs. Shedadamus and I have paid to go to this event that's coming up in Vegas coming up, right? I don't know how many times I can say coming up, but I did. Anyway, paid good money, right? Played very, very good money. But do you know why State of Origin is so great? It's because these officials kind of let the game get played the way that people want to see the game played. Nobody wants to see players hurt, all right? But there's a difference in malicious contact when you're trying to injure someone and just the game. And the guys falling into tackles is not a penalty, especially since he's going to get right up. And let me tell you, I could go on for another 30 minutes on this, but I'm going to stop right now and say something. If this game turns into soccer, and we're starting to see it do that, where guys are writhing on the ground. Now, every time a guy goes down in a questionable tackle, he's grabbing his head or slowing the play of the ball down, grabbing his neck. Oh, woe is me. You've put this in the players' heads that they're milking calls now. And that is so not rugby league. It isn't. And the battle that the AFL and the NRL have right now for the hearts of Australia, the AFL is laughing at this. Because the NRL is finding a way to get into the way of their own game. And the AFL, no matter if you like Aussie rules football or not, is very, very smart where they let the game somewhat play out. They don't do these drastic rule changes. Yes, they've been recently doing some rule changes that people aren't fond of, but they haven't really changed the integrity of the game. And this is what we're talking about, integrity. Players milking calls. Players going, oh, no, they just crunched the back of my neck. You would never see a player slow down when I first started watching this game until the Hutchinson situation, which the officiating crew blew with the sliding knees of Dylan Brown. I've gone into this over and over and over again. This is where this garbage all started, and then they ruined Magic Round up in Brisbane because of the overreaction. And it's been overreaction ever since. But the game is going well, but it could go even better if you just get out of its way. And you know what I'd do? I'd nuke the bunker right away. That would be gone. It'd be gone. Instantly gone. But I don't know. Officials, remember. NRL, remember. When fans don't know if late hits, high contact, obstruction, all these alleged penalties, if they're going to be called or not called, you're not going to, for one, be as excited to watch a product. But you better remember something else. You're not going to want to bet on something if you're not sure if your money could be confiscated because of a call from an official and not from a great play from a player. And don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. I would never gamble on a game that I cannot trust the powers that be. And that's the people holding the whistles and the bunker. And you're right now skating that fine line of this game being called into question at times. So, I'm done with this. I'm not going to talk about it any further. But that really stuck with me and made me very, very angry to see a match that I was so excited about to be just ended because of a whistle. So, we're done. Now, enough of the whistleblowers, enough of the bunker. If I ever talked about an official or a bunker ever again, this podcast would be 1,000 times better. Well, I would always be here, so it would still be great, but still. But let's talk about something I'm very, very, very concerned about, and that is Nathan Cleary. We all held our breaths, no matter if you're a Penrith fan or not, when Nathan went down, and it was pretty innocuous. It wasn't really a hard hit or anything. He kind of got hit on the shoulder, then he landed a little bit strong, and sometimes if you land wrong with your arms in the wrong positions, your arms get driven up into your shoulder, and all of that tension and all of that motion and all the, what am I trying to say? All of that gets loaded up into your shoulders, and it can do things, right? It can cause damage. It can cause injury. So when he went down and he kind of paused and just, the body was telling him, okay, that didn't feel right. You're hurt. I think everybody held your breath because we know already what's going on with Nathan's shoulders from the shoulder recon he had, I think 1 or 2 years ago or whatever. And so we didn't really know. We didn't know. We just knew how he was moving his shoulder, and then all of a sudden he paused, and then he started walking towards the sideline. And that's when I was like, uh-oh, this is real trouble, when he started walking towards the sideline, right? I was worried about the shoulder. Now we find out that it was the other shoulder than the shoulder that he had surgery on. Okay, that makes some people happy. That doesn't make me happy, because now you have a surgically repaired shoulder, and now you have another shoulder that has gotten dislocated. Now, we're finding out now this shoulder has been bothersome all season for him. Matter of fact, there's even been talk that this shoulder has been bad since they did the World Cup Challenge when Penrith went over to England to play that match. But I'm worried because shoulders are something a hard-nosed player has to have. Benji Marshall, who's never been known as a hard-edge player, had 5 shoulder reconstructions. 5. And Benji even was to the point where he said, if I have another shoulder injury that calls for surgery, I'm retiring. That's how bad Benji's shoulder situation got. A lot of people don't even know this because the game wasn't even really shown in the United States then. But Benji was close to calling time on his career because of how bad his shoulders were, right? We, fortunate enough, got to see him for another 13 seasons after he was right on the brink of calling it time, and he never had problems with his shoulders after that. But shoulders are a huge part of this game, especially if you're a playmaker, all right? Now, what scares me about this is they're saying now Cleary will be back just because after all the scans, it was just a dislocated shoulder, right? But anybody will tell you who's had shoulder dislocations, it becomes, oh my gosh, look at the joke. You remember the movie Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson? He could pop his shoulder in and out of place, Martin Riggs, his character in that. That's what you worry about, right? That when a shoulder goes out like that, that it is easier to come back out again, right? especially if you don't let it heal properly and just have time to stabilize and settle again. And anybody, and that's Mrs. Shedadamus, we all know Mrs. Shedadamus is in the medical field, will tell you that 3 weeks is probably not long enough, and you know he's going to be strapped up, but isn't probably long enough for that shoulder to fully get healed up, get set again, have time to kind of strengthen and go. Now, you can do some things to try to strengthen it. We know that. I've had a problem with my shoulder for a little bit, and I finally, after months, got the pain to go away, and I've got motion back in it the right way. But that's when I don't have people running at me. And I think we all know right now that Cleary comes back in round 1 or round 2 of the playoffs. Teams are going to be aiming for him. Teams are going to be making him want to make tackles. Teams are going to be charging him, rushing him, all of that stuff. That shoulder is going to get tested right out of the chute. And the way that Cleary plays, he doesn't back away from freaking physical contact. He doesn't back away from the tackle. It just makes you concerned. It makes you concerned because every time you see him do that, take the line on, put the tackle in, you get worried about, okay, what's going to happen with these shoulders. And we just don't know. We don't know. But I'm kind of holding my breath because I think we watch Nathan Cleary and you see a player that who has a strong chance of going down as one of the greatest players this game's ever seen. Right? He really has that chance. But the last thing any of us want to see are players that have their careers shortened because of injury. And this could happen. This could very much happen, and I hope not. I hope time and luck are on Nathan Cleary's side. I hope he gets through the finals round. I hope that, with the tape jobs are going to put on those shoulders, that he's going to be ready for it. But we don't know. And I guess we could say that about sports always. We never know. But when you have a player like this that is on the cusp of something very, very special, you hate to see that injury possibly could keep them away from hitting those heights, if you know what I mean. Because right now, Penrith is on the brink of going down in history as one of the greatest teams in the competition. So we'll have to see. We'll have to wait. And hopefully, like I said, time and a little luck rule in Nathan Cleary's favor. Now, as we go into the 40-20, we have a special time, and that is the 14th Immortal is crowned. We're going to talk about this. It's present time, future, whatever you want to say. But the players that were up for the 14th Immortal nominees were Bradley Clyde, Ron Coote, Laurie Daly. That's right, Laurie Daly, who's not telling you who to bet on, but Laurie Daly, the player. Brad Fittler, Ken Irvine, Brett Kenny, Ali Langer, Glenn Lazarus, Darren Lockyer, Billy Slater, Cameron Smith, Peter Sterling, and JT, Jonathan Thurston. What a list of who's who. And the one thing I want to say when I look at that is every single one of those guys deserve to be in an Immortal. Every single one of them. I'm saying, all of them have at least 2 or 3 reasons why you could really champion for them to be Immortals, right? Now, I will say one of the cool things that I would envision is what Cooper Cronk said. It would really be cool to see Slater, Cameron Smith, and JT all going as Immortals at the same time. Something feels right about that. Something just really feels right that those guys should be on their own Mount Rushmore of rugby league because, and you almost feel strange about having, Cameron Smith and Billy Slater on there without Cooper Cronk. Because, again, those are the big 3, right? And I know JT is part of that when it comes to the Maroons, but he didn't play with those Melbourne clubs that those other 2 played with. But anyway, I think that would be really, really cool if we ever got to see those guys actually go in at the same time. All right. Now, as you all know by this point, Ron Coote won and was been inducted as the 14th Immortal. I did not see Ron Coote play live. I think everybody who did talk about him being one of the greatest players they've seen. But if you look at this guy's resume, it is pretty damn impressive. For one, he's the 14th Immortal, like I just said. He won 6 premierships, 4 with the Rabbitohs, 2 with the Roosters. Yes, I just said that. 4 with the Bunnies, 2 with the Chooks. that already makes you public enemy number one in some cases, but also a pretty damn strong individual to be playing for both of those clubs, and then at that time playing against those clubs. Because Benedict Arnold wasn't even called that bad of a guy compared to somebody who played for the opposite side like that. He played 13 matches for New South Wales and 23 tests for Australia. And here's the crazy stat. In 11 years, he played in 9 grand finals in a period of time. 9 out of 11 years in a period. That is insanity. But when you hear that, you go, why wasn't this guy an immortal way before right now? Because that is a resume. And it's pretty darn impressive. And something that I've got to say, I wish I would have watched Ron Coote play live a little bit, because that's a special player. So congratulations to Ron Coote. I know a lot of people are happy that he's been inducted as the 14th Immortal, and he by every means deserves it. Now, not a man that's an immortal, but kicking off round 25, I like bad blood, Shedheads. I like a little hate on the field. I think a little hate and caffeine in your life is some of the best energy you'll ever have. Now, don't say that to my beautiful mother, because she would be very, very disappointed in your Shedadamus about saying that. But I'm going to say hate and caffeine is not too bad of things. I probably should say that because as I got you heard me angry earlier in the podcast, I probably shouldn't have been listening to my first album of Slipknot recently, because, when you listen to the 8, it has a way of striking up a little fire in your soul. So, okay, maybe that's where I'm standing. So let's get back to this. We're going to hear a little bit of hate, a little bit of booing, and a little bit of angst this kick off round 25. And that is because Luke Brooks is returning to Leichhardt Oval in a different colored jersey than the black and orange, black and gold, whatever you want to say, against the West Tigers. That's right. Luke Brooks is coming back to Leichhardt. Now, ask Aaron Woods how he was treated when he first came back to Leichhardt. First off, they wanted to burn his headband while he still had it on his head, and then they wanted to give him a haircut. That's how bad they wanted Woodsy when he came back. But if you remembered, when he was with the Tigers, Woodsy was beloved. Now, everyone hated him up in Queensland, but Woodsy was beloved. He was a big oof, if you know what I mean. He was Aaron Woods, right? It looked like if you just tickled him, he kind of jiggle and laugh, right? That's Woodsy. But they booed him. They wanted to hang him from one of the posts out there in Leichhardt. This is a rabid fan base, the Tigers. And so when people say, oh, they shouldn't boo Luke Brooks, well, hold on a second. Let's talk about this for a second. First off, Luke Brooks was anointed when he was a Tiger as the next Andrew Johns. So from day one, he was already behind the 8 ball. You can't be called an immortal or a future immortal when you haven't even played your first finals match. Well, we all know that for a fact, can't we? Because Luke Brooks never played the finals with the West Tigers. Never. So you can't call a guy the next Andrew Johns if he never played the finals. All right? So I hear this over and over again about how great of a playmaker Luke Brooks is, right? But instantly, by watching these two guys, the player during that time that my eyes were fixed on, like, this guy's special, was Mitchell Moses. I was so excited that Mitchell Moses was a part of the Tigers. I was like, wow, like this team has a chance to be special, because you had, Mitch, you had Luke, you had Teddy, you had a young core nucleus. Well, we know how the Tigers blew that up. But one of the reasons they blew it up is because they put all of their chips on the table and all their money on Luke Brooks. And they let Mitchell Moses leave and kept Luke Brooks. I'm going to ask you right now, Shedheads, if the Tigers jettison Luke Brooks but keep Mitchell Moses, I think they're going a totally different direction. And the reason I say that is nothing against Luke Brooks, but Luke Brooks is a quiet player. He's got skill, but he's quiet. Mitchell Moses will get into your rear end. Mitchell Moses, like I just said, Mitchell Moses likes hate and caffeine. He's a guy you follow through hell and back. You go through flames for the guy. He's got that edge to him. He's got Tiger blood, for criminy sakes. But they went with Luke Brooks. So I say right now, after I just went on that little diatribe, Tigers fans, get your boo birds out and give it to them with both barrels. Give it to them. And also, while you're at it, why don't you beat Manly and really send the people home at Leichhardt. Very, very excited about that. But I'm excited. I'm telling you right now, I'm starting my day tomorrow watching this war that's going to go on. Because I tell you right now, the Tigers are going to fight hard. And maybe Luke Brooks will even fire up his grill after the match. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, get the boo birds out at Leichhardt. And finally, a big story to me and a lot of people, especially people in New Zealand. This is going to be the final game that Shawn Johnson runs out in and plays in New Zealand. It will be his 223rd appearance for the Waz. And I think it's only fitting that the worst name in the game, GIO Media Stadium, is going to be called Shawn Johnson Stadium for his last match. And I will say this right now, why don't we just keep it that way or go back to calling it Mount Smart or whatever? But why don't we just retire that GIO Media stuff? That would be me. But I love it. It's going to be a great, great match. They are going to be taking on one of the toughest up-and-coming teams in the competition in the Canterbury Bulldogs. But I don't know. And I can't give you my pick yet because we're getting ready to do that. But I think it's going to be a hard-hitting affair. And I really, really feel that the Waz are going to put their best foot forward, even though their season is done. But congratulations to Shawn Johnson. I know it's going to be emotional. And I hope the Waz supporters are there in full voice and throat to really give the Waz the pickup that they need for this round 25 tussle with the Dogs. Now, your Shedadamus went 5 for 8. I hope that paid your mortgage for the next couple of months. But let's go into the picks for round 25. Thursday, kicking it off, like I just said, the Luke Brooks homecoming match to Leichhardt Oval. Shedheads, come on. Are you kidding me? Tigers all the way. I'm taking the West Tigers. I'm taking them to maybe not even take that wooden spoon trophy and hand it up to Wyoming and to the Parramatta Eels. But I think for some reason the Tigers are going to find a way using the hostility, the caffeine and hate at Leichhardt to actually get that victory and beat the Sea Eagles. Friday, Bulldogs versus the Warriors. Again, I'm a big emotion guy. Ask Mrs. Shedadamus if I'm an emotion guy. Warriors, up the Waz. I've got the Waz stopping that freight train that is the Canterbury Bulldogs and getting the victory. Finishing up Friday night, we've got the Eels versus the Broncos. It's still to be determined if you're going to see the pretty boy back at the fullback position for the Broncos, if Luke, if Walsh is going to be there. But I will say this right now. I think even with Walsh out of the game, I'm going to take the Broncos over the Eels. I just saw something in the Eels' eyes last week that they're so ready for this season to be done. I think the Broncos win up in Suncorp. Saturday, Panthers versus the Raiders. Jerome Luai, here are the keys to the car. Do what you want with it. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think Luai and the Panthers know that they have a lot to play for still. And I think the Raiders, after what they did last week, how they dropped the ball up in Townsville, I know Sticky's going to be into them this week, but I just think the Panthers have too much strike for the Raiders. Dolphins versus the Storm down in Melbourne. I don't know what it is about the upset this week, but I'm feeling it. I'm going with the Fins. I think the Dolphins are going to stun a Melbourne side that's still going to be still pumped up from their victory last week against Penrith. And I think the Dolphins are going to sneak in, steal the chocolates, and take those back up to Queensland. I got the Dolphins over the Storm. Knights versus the Rabbitohs. I told you earlier, Cody Walker is out because of the high contact, his concussion. I think that sets the game up perfectly for the Knights as long as they continue to attack the middle and Kalen Ponga plays up to his potential. I think the Knights beat the Rabbitohs. Sunday, Roosters versus the Titans. It's crazy. 2 weeks ago, we were all circling this match because we thought, the Titans had a good chance of winning a couple. The Roosters, this could be a match for the Titans to possibly, fight to get into the finals. But after a couple of lackluster performances, it's not the case. So I got the Chooks. I think the Chooks know that they have to keep winning. I think they want to how they want to consolidate and put their flag in its place as in that third or second position. I've got the Chooks over the Titans. And finally, Sharks versus the Dragons. I'm going with the Sharks. I know Braden Trindle is back. I told you I'm a big fan of Dan Atkinson. I think Cronulla knows, especially how they played against the Knights and found a way to win. I think that they did find a way to win again. I know it's the Flano Bowl. I know Shane Flanagan's already lost the first one against them. But I think that the Sharks find a way to get it done again. Now, my gun of the round, it's not Carras, it's not Jakey Clifford. My gun of the round, Shedheads, Isabelle Kelly. That's right. It's not an NRL player, it's a WNRL player. Isabelle Kelly, listen to these numbers that she put up against the Dragons this last weekend. 2 tries, 269 running meters, 3 line breaks, 2 line breaks assists, 6 tackle breaks, 1 1-on-1 steal, and 14 tackles made. I will say this right now. She is one of my favorite rugby league players, period, to watch. She attacks the game. She plays solid. I've never once seen her grab her head because of any type of contact. She's a bulldozer. And she's pleasing on the eyes. That doesn't hurt. Nothing against Mrs. Shedadamus because she's a gorgeous woman too. But Mrs. Shedadamus does not run over people. Not that she couldn't. Trust me, she very much could. So I'm going with Isabelle Kelly as my gun of the round. That team just flows through her. And she's the number 1 try scorer for the Sydney Roosters too. Took it back from Jess Surgis. So congratulations to Isabelle Kelly. And Shedheads, round 25. We're almost to the finals. Just hold on. Drink a little more electrolytes. Pace yourself. I know some of you can't touch your toes, but try to get the stretch on a little bit. We can do this. We finish strong. We take it out. Let's get to the finals. But let's make sure we put the whistles away as we go there, shall we? Let's put the whistles away. If you're listening, NRL, please put the whistles away. But that being said, Shedheads, until next week, this is your Shedadamus. This is Corey Jackson. You've been listening to Outside the Sheds. Try to treat at least one person besides your Mr. and Mrs. Nice this week. But until next week, see ya!
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.